Thanks for checking out Higher Thought Gaming. With this one right here, we are on the heavy, and we're going to be getting into our definitive build guide 9.0. So overall, how this will work is you'll see the overall class build on your screen, and it'll pair up specific weapons that I find to be best with this build. But all three of these weapons, obviously on the heavy, are top tier and will be able to pair up with any single build that you see here. So we will have 3 different class builds we're going to go through. And then as well as we're going to show you all of the weapons. They will be timestamped in the description below. And then you will see something like this for each weapon, and then I will go into detail on some of these builds. So where we're going to start here is we're going to start with this class build right here, and this is going to be our hybrid build and one of the top tier builds I find to be on this class. We are going to tie this up with any weapon that you want. Honestly, it will run good with the Plasma, Melta, or the Heavy Bolter, and we're going to take a deeper dive into our class perks, and then you can really go through, pick out your weapon from there, and hear about the weapon and see multiple builds for you to tailor to this exact build right here. Okay, starting right here with our hybrid build. For our first core perk, we are going to take Restoration. Killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores 1 armor segment, and the cooldown is only 15 seconds. So, you know, that is basically 4 armor segments a minute, and you are constantly with the heavy going through 7 enemies in rapid succession. So this is overall just a very strong perk on the class. We have Fortitude to keep our health up. We have 30% increase, which is a huge increase overall in the game. It is going to help you just stay alive longer. We have Overwhelming Power. When Iron Halo is active, all squad members within 10 meters deal 10% more range damage. And this just helps you because we will also have our 15% increased range damage when our Iron Halo is down. So no matter what our Iron Halo is doing, it's always going to be giving us some range damage. Encompassing Aegis, one of the strongest team perks in the entire game. And honestly, I think Additional Supplies is a very powerful perk as well. Then we have Consecutive Execution. Killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores your equipment charge. Another one, as I was saying, when it comes to killing enemies in rapid succession, probably nobody really does it faster than the heavy with nearly all of his weapons. So no matter what, if it's anything in rapid succession, you will be taking advantage of it as much as you possibly can, basically. And then we have Power Regulator. Our Iron Halo loses energy 20% more slowly. We are going to take Brute Force. When Iron Halo is in cooldown, range damage is increased by 15%, as we were talking about earlier. And then Offensive Capability. This is the best signature perk on the class. You're going to want to take this with every build. It has a lot of valuable uses to destroying vines, helping with spore mines, and it helps overall with all of a bunch of annoying things in the game. So always take that AoE on your Iron Halo. So overall, when it comes to this build, the hybrid build right here, I find this to be the top tier build on the heavy. It is extremely powerful when you tie this to any one of his weapons. Any 3 of his top tier weapons are really going to pair well with this and make you feel like an absolute god out there on the battlefield. So hybrid build, top tier for sure, guys. And just really quick, let's look at our prestige perks we're going to take here. We have Conviction. For our armor, will every time it is depleted, you take 25% less health damage. Indomitable Spirit. For while performing a gun strike, we will not suffer knockback. Duelist to increase our perfect parry and perfect block window. So we are just doing a bunch of survivability right here. And then this is obviously right here going to help out with damage. Our melee kills of extremist level or higher enemies restores your primary weapons ammo by 1 magazine. So that is going to help with a little bit of damage. And all 3 of these are very good when it comes to helping out with survivability overall. All right, from there, we're going to move into our max defense build, and we're going to have 2 changes in our class perks. And then as well as overall survivability, I think the Melta will pair best with this, but all of the weapons, as I said before, extremely strong. They're all good with contested health, so they're all going to be very powerful overall in this build as well. We will go straight into some of our changes that we are seeing overall from our hybrid build. So we are switching over to Strategic Stand to grab us some knockback resistance, and as well as our 15% more contested health gain. I find Strategic Stand to be one of the best knockback resistance in the game. And then also we are switching up from Consecutive Execution from our damage up to Adamant Will to grab 20% less health damage reduction for 10 seconds every time we deactivate our Iron Halo. This is extremely easy to keep up, guys. So every time you activate or deactivate, you're going to be able to grab this 20%. You're going to have your 25% from your Conviction from your prestige perk here. So that's a 45% health damage reduction. And then if it's range damage, you will be at 70% damage reduction overall when it comes to your health and range. So I find those 3 perks are very nice to pair up. But other than that, we are running with the same thing as our hybrid build here. We have restoration to keep our armor up. We are going to have overwhelming power for our 10% range damage for us and our teammates. Encompassing Aegis, adamant will, as we just discussed. Power regulator. Brute force for our range damage increases by 15% when Iron Halo is down. And as I mentioned earlier, offensive capability is a very strong perk overall in the game, and I highly recommend taking that. For our prestige perks, they are going to stay the same as our hybrid build. We have Conviction, Indomitable Spirit, we are going to take Duelist, and we are going to take Auxiliary Reload. Overall, when it's coming to the max defense build, I do find this to actually be a top tier class build as well for the heavy. It is extremely powerful. You can do all the hardest content in the game with this. So I highly recommend checking out this build if you haven't already. And then we're going to have one more class build to check out before we get into all of our weapons. And our last one up here is going to be our max damage build. So we're going to have a few changes in our class perks overall. We are going to switch up a couple of our prestige perks. We'll talk about those too. Overall, this is also a very good build to run. I do feel like the plasma ties best to the max damage because just overall the plasma does do the most damage in the game. Even when I feel like sometimes I damage the plasma with the Melta, just the plasma seems to always beat it out. And mostly every single playthrough I always have. It's not by a huge amount, but it is just, when it comes to damage, guys, the heavy plasma is no joke at all. So we're going to get straight into our class build here. All right, we're going to start right up here with our class perks. So we are going to switch down here to auxiliary ammunition. So this is just going to ensure us that we can really fly through our ammunition. And even if we do end up running low, or out, should I say, we will be able to use our stomp, use whatever means necessary, our secondary, to grab 20% ammo back, which is going to be a big amount. Then we are also using our new perk Thermal Boost. It's not a new perk, but they did add when you have less than 50% ammo in your magazine, that your range damage will also increase by 15%. So that's just going to give you another 15% onto whatever weapon that you choose. Overwhelming power, as in all the builds, with our 10% range damage when Iron Halo is up. And then we are going to switch off of Encompassing Aegis and go with our additional supplies. So this build is all going to be about being able to keep your ammunition up throughout your playthrough, really let you burn through it and not worry so much about it, and just do the maximum amount of damage as possible. I'm sorry about that. That should have been switched. This is consecutive execution you're going to go with. Killing 7 enemies to grab your equipment charge. Then we're going power regulator here for our 20% slower drain on our Iron Halo. Brute force. And we're finishing it off with offensive capability. All right. Oh, I don't even have points. Okay, well, when it comes to our prestige perks here, we're going conviction. You're going to be taking conviction. You're going to be taking auxiliary reload. So those are the two you're taking. You are switching this out with your 50% stomp radius, and you are switching this out with your 50% stomp damage. So this is going to be all melee damage here, and then this is going to be your survivability perk, and this is going to be another ammo perk added on. Yeah, so the stomp, it's going to help you really use this if it comes down to it. Having that stomp is really easy to kill 7 enemies in rapid succession. And then even your secondary, obviously you have much better options now with the heavy bolter, the plasma pistol, which I actually recommend you run. And we'll get into our secondaries as well in the video. But the damage build, guys, I don't think it's as good as the previous two builds we talked about, but I think it is a lot of fun to run overall. And I definitely think you should go in there and try it out and honestly tie it to any weapon that you want. They're all going to feel good. If you're pushing past wave 15, I would say that is where this will start to struggle. And in operations, I actually find this to be a very, very good build as well. It's very easy to keep your ammo up. I find this to be a better operations build than I do a siege build. This really helps with your ammunition, guys. It's going to allow you to do a ton of damage. It's just you will lack some survivability of the other two builds. So overall, I had a ton of fun running all three of these builds. So it is about time to get into some of our weapons here. Okay, we're going to start our weapons right here with the heavy plasma. Now, overall, my favorite build is going to be on the top. That is what suits my playstyle the best, but that is 100% not saying that that is going to suit your exact playstyle the best. So these are the three builds that I was able to go through the hardest content in the game in, and I think there are three separate builds that will help tailor to different playstyles overall. So when it's coming to the top two builds here, we got the damage and ammo hybrid and the max ammo. I am recommending the fire rate version of the heavy plasma, which did see buffs in patch 9.0. So it's hard to believe this thing is charging up faster than it did before, but it is, and it's obviously hitting as hard as ever. So you are going to want to check out that version of the gun. I highly recommend that. And then what you're seeing with our last build on the screen here is going to be our max damage build. Now the main thing with this build is you are dropping your ammunition. You're dropping 20% ammunition, and as well as your charge shots will cost 5 shots or 5 ammunition per charge in that max damage build. So that's the reason that you're definitely going to want to run that one with the ammo variant. And you are going to notice the difference in the charge shot, guys, but you're going to really want that way to keep your ammunition up throughout your operation or throughout your siege run. Straight over to our Melta here, which also seen some buffs with patch 9.0. It had a 17% fire rate buff to the fire rate variant, so I highly recommend going in and checking out that version of the weapon. And I do find that version to perform best on siege and the ammo version to perform best on operations. So when we're moving down the list here, we're going to start with our damage and armor variant here, and this gives you the ability to have great damage and as well as the ability to fill up 1 armor every 30 seconds. So when you're tying this to things like your class perk that allows you to gain armor once every 15 seconds, every 30 seconds you can gain 3 armor, and armor overall helps so much with melee damage in the game. That is a very powerful perk. Now when we're moving down to our max damage, what we're dropping here is the armor perk, but you are going to gain 25% more damage when you have low ammo. So low ammo in most cases on the Melta is about 10 ammunition. And this is going to tie to something like your class perk that is now giving you 15% more damage when you have low ammo. So when you actually have very low ammo, you're going to have 40% damage increase. And as I said, that is extremely noticeable as well. And just something fun to try out and go through. And then our last one up here is going to be our health and armor variant. I find this to be the weakest of the 3. But it will give you the ability to gain your 1 armor, and it will also give you the ability anytime you're under 30% health, when you execute a major level or higher enemy, you will gain 10% health back. So you will have some kind of health gain, and then tying this to something like your 30% extra health on your class is not bad, because when you have 30% extra health, you actually have like 60% health, base health. You know what I'm saying? So this is not a horrible one to run in. And for the last primary we're going to look at, it is going to be our heavy bolter. So the firepower variant of this weapon did see a buff in patch 9.0, a 7% damage buff overall to the base damage of the gun. Now, 7% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you tie this to something like the heavy bolter that has extremely fast fire rate, it is a noticeable difference. So I do find all the variants, honestly, of the heavy bolter to be extremely good, and tailoring them to your playstyle is going to be best, but I do recommend going in and trying out the firepower variant of the weapon just to see how it tailors to the way you're playing. And the first build we're going to look at here is our damage and cooling build. This is going to give us our max amount of cooling and our max amount of damage overall, and it is going to give us a ton of ammunition on top of that. So that is one of my favorite builds right there. And also the damage and accuracy version is very good too. Now I'm not sure how the accuracy, like the spread, is actually affecting PC players, but I definitely, if you have better accuracy, better spread, and things like on controller, it helps with like aim assist and things like that. So this will help if you're having any accuracy problems at all, and it will help in your hip fire as well, keeping everything nice and tight and hitting your enemies and not just shooting all over the place. So that, I find both of these builds very good. And the top one is going to give you more cooling and more ammunition, and the bottom one is going to give you a lot more accuracy overall. Okay, when it's coming to our secondary weapons, there's 2 weapons that I find to be your best choices. It's going to be either the plasma pistol or the heavy bolt pistol. So we're going to start with the plasma pistol here. This gun also seen a buff in patch 9. The fire rate version was buffed a lot, and now your charge shots are nearly instant, guys. So this will help you with contested health and just overall getting your shots off much faster on moving targets and things like that. And then obviously the ammo version is going to give you the maximum amount of ammo. So I think both of these actually are very good for the heavy, and I don't find the ammo version to be a huge detriment to the class, because he doesn't rely on it on like contested health like other classes do. And overall, just the build setup for this, you want the maximum amount of ammunition on either version you're running, and you really want to grab a lot of the radius damage as well. This can help with multiple Majoris being around each other and really help you get to executes a lot faster. And the plasma pistol overall is just in a great place right now in the game, and I find it to be the top tier weapon overall for the class. Now, when it's coming to the heavy bolt pistol, it's not like this thing is bad, guys. And if you like a bolter better, then obviously this is what you're going to want to choose right here. And this is my favorite setup when it comes to the heavy overall. So it's going to be grabbing us a lot of damage. And then overall, we are going to use our class ability for another 20% damage to add on to the weapon. We are using our Iron Halo a good amount. And then we're going to finish it off with 10% damage at the end there. And as well as when you have low ammo, you deal 25% more damage. And you're always running your magazine to 0 basically with this weapon. So you will have this 25% increase quite often through each one of your magazines.